Ladies and gentlemen, Football Scoop podcast is back. It's very exciting. It's a new year. It's a new month. It's February 2025. Gentlemen, it is great to see you. I am your host, Scott Russell. Got college football experts, Zach Barnett, Johnny Bryce, Doug Samuels. Great to have you guys. Everybody's well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Glad to be potting again.
About the state of Texas and particular Dallas? Any sort of interesting news?
Yeah, it's like there was a death or an attack on Dallas, and emotionally there kind of was. Like it's been an interesting weekend here.
An interesting few weeks for Dallas and fans.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Let's trade Luka away.
For nothing. For almost nothing.
For a liability.
Yeah. So my wife and daughter, we had a cheer competition this weekend, and they get home at like 11:30, right as it happened. And obviously, I hadn't told anyone, and I felt compelled to tell her, as if there'd been like that feeling you have when there's a death, and you just gotta tell someone. Of course, she cares nothing, but the Luka's the only Maverick she knows, and she was like, "What?" Like it just kind of had that reaction, like
for AD. What?
Yeah. We could do 20 minutes on that, but that's not why we're here.
We really could. I almost have tears in my eyes just thinking about the stupidity of that. That was amazing. Yeah. Okay, so we're really going to talk a little bit more about college football. The NFL is in a bit of flux. You know, all sorts of coaching changes happen. The Saints, or the Super Bowl is this upcoming weekend. The Saints still have not hired Kellen Moore. They hope to hire Kellen Moore immediately thereafter, which will generate even further changes in the coaching industry. A lot of college coaches have been bouncing up to the NFL, really a lifestyle thing and ultimate dream type thing. I guess I want to start us, guys, with the opposite one where NFL comes back to college, and this is Bill Belichick. Bill's at UNC, building a staff, not really in a rush, not hiring the flashy guys. He's kind of building it in the mold of what his Patriots staffs were. He's like, hey, he's got guys and they wound up being awesome. And wow, Bill's a really good football coach. All right, I'm looking for just general thoughts. North Carolina, Bill Belichick, how's this going to play out?
I'll go first. I have two overarching thoughts. One is I remember, Doug, you wrote about it for our website about how Nick Saban kind of went viral earlier in the year on College Game Day when he talked about his success in the profession switched from when he went from a transactional coach to a transformational coach, and how you're not going to get the most out of your players until the players believe that you love them and all that stuff. Players don't care what you know until you know that they care. That's one of the most used axioms in coaching. And Belichick, his approach at North Carolina has been very much open about being the opposite. That you come here and we're going to run our organization like an NFL team, and we're going to prepare you for the NFL because it's going to be like an NFL team that happens to be playing in college football. And there's a lot of appeal to that. But I've never seen any coach be so open about that this is going to be a transactional program. Like, we're going to acquire you, you're going to play for us for 2-3 years, whatever, and then you're going to go on to the NFL or on to life. And I think it's an interesting thing to watch. I don't know that it's going to be better, worse. I think it's just going to be interesting to watch. And I also think we're lying to ourselves if we don't think that there is a high percentage that this is an utter disaster. Belichick is advanced in age. He's never coached college football. His staff is a bunch of guys, and there's a reason he's not the Patriots head coach anymore. It's because they sucked after Tom Brady left. So I would say the disaster percentage is, I'm going to put it at 20%. And that feels on some levels low, on some levels high. I think it's the highest of anyone in college, of any of these big time hires.
Can I pause you and say, a few years back, you could have almost verbatim said that about Deion Sanders.
I was going to mention something, yeah.
And I mean, everything you just said is kind of applicable to Deion being a Power 5 head coach. And it's been pretty darn successful, honestly.
That is very true. Two differences is Deion's done it before. He obviously was a Jackson State head coach and learned how to be. Obviously, he was learning how to be a head coach, while Bill Belichick literally wrote the book on being a head coach. But the other difference here is obviously Deion had 2 top 5 draft picks to build his team around, and Belichick looks like he's not going to have that. But having said that, yeah, you're absolutely right. The disaster percentage for Deion was high as well.
I'm fascinated by this move. I'm also fascinated that you only set the disaster percentage at 20, CB, because I frankly think it's a little higher than that. And I don't even have any issue with the approach that they're going to be pretty transactional, that they're trying to acquire players. But in the current environment that we all know college football right now, there's no rookie deals. Like when Belichick was drafting a dude to the Patriots, he knew he was going to have him for 3, 4, 5 years. Right now, there's none of those guarantees in college football. You have guys that will be on their 4th team at 4 different schools in the 2025 season, and there's nothing to stop that right now. So maybe you feel like you get them in there and they see how greatly they're being coached by Bill Belichick and all of his gurus. But I'm fascinated by it. I think it's a very combustible situation. I think the fact that we all know that the Ivory Tower and the Athletics Tower were not aligned on this move, and that Bubba Cunningham probably got kneecapped in some ways, or who knows, maybe a guy out of the Big Easy would be in the Big Chapel Hill right now. So I think that there are a number of issues at play here, but I don't think it's any accident whatsoever that North Carolina is playing in the primetime slot on Labor Day to kick off the Bill Belichick era. Like, TV wanted that as much as they want that guaranteed Thursday night opening slot for the first NFL game of the season. Like, you could tell, especially since it's an intersectional matchup with another quality brand program in TCU that was just playing for the national title a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of intrigue there. I'm fascinated to see it unfold, but I'm partly fascinated to see it unfold, to see if it's like a WWE wrestling match or whatever, and you think it's going to be gnarly, and then it becomes even more gnarly than what you hoped.
I'm not sure how it's going to work out in terms of total wins and things like that after year one. I'm really fascinated in how things look at the end of the year. Like, are the players that he's had for a year, or let's say he makes it 2 or 3 years there and is still there and not in the NFL, how attractive his players become to NFL teams, because they've been in kind of a true farm system and have been one of the greatest of all time. Is he going to be viewed in a short time like Nick Saban develops players for the NFL draft, and how his coaches that he's taken his time hiring and filling out his staff, how those coaches go on into bigger and better things? Because his coaching tree at the NFL level did not branch out very well and do very well. Largely, the Josh McDaniels was a disaster at 2 different places and is now back in New England. But that's what I'm not sure. I'm not sure he makes a bowl game in the first year, but if he wins 4 games, I'm interested to see in how those North Carolina players are viewed in the NFL draft.
And
if he wins 4 games, are you talking about Bill Belichick, the GOAT? Like, if he wins 4 games,
he's not a personality that a lot of college guys, I think, or high school players are attracted to. You're going to go there to try and be developed, but I mean, we're talking about a generation that likes to post everything, all their offers, and entering the portal. Everything's got to be on social media, and that's not Bill Belichick to a T. So
he gets darn near college age ladies attracted to him somehow. I will point out that to Doug's point, to back up Doug here, Bill Belichick's last full season, he only won 4 games, and he had 17 tries in that one. So to think he might only win 4 games at North Carolina is fair. And look, North Carolina didn't win a number of games that it absolutely should have won, especially down the twilight of Mac Brown's run there. It was very rarely because North Carolina was out talented on the field, because they still brought in a bunch of good players in there. They still had multiple draft picks, and Omarion Hampton looks like he'll be one of the first running backs drafted in the upcoming draft. So the cupboard wasn't bare, but now there's been huge turnover, and so Bill Belichick has to resupply the cupboard and then coach it in a way that he's never coached before. I understand ball is ball, but he's never coached at the college level.
I don't usually lay down rules on bold predictions, but I'm letting you know right now, nobody can go bold prediction. Bill Belichick's team wins 6 games. Like I can't hear that. You will be shunned. You'll lose your mic status for the rest of the season. It'll be terrible.
Mine will probably be something really bold, like preseason #1 team might make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs. Is that what somebody said? Did somebody say make the playoffs? Win the whole thing. Okay. Good talk. All right, college football's in a fascinating place, right? The house settlement deal, which I think everybody was kind of banking on, was going, by April, we were all going to know the new deal's coming and players would get $20 million a year divvied up, and it changes everything. And Power 4 athletics has been preparing for that. Like, we're going to be paying these guys $20 million. The whole game has changed, and the recruits have all been operating under that assumption. Well, all these objections were filed. I think they were due Friday. A bunch, like hundreds of them, were filed. And it's like, all right, so where do we go from here? And I don't know that we'll get much else until the judge issues the ruling. It's a weird time in college football. And I know you just got to adapt, but without knowing what the rules are, that's the awkwardness I find. Zach, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, Judge Claudia Wilkin is by far the most powerful person in college athletics right now, because whether this settlement passes or not is, someone correct me if I'm wrong, solely up in her judgment. And it's going to be chaotic, I think, if it does pass, because we're going to move into an era we've never been in before. And I think it'll probably be even more chaotic if it doesn't pass, because then we're going to be back at square one. And a lot of the portal activity that took place over the past 2 months, a lot of those guys were moving schools based off, we're going to pay you X once the settlement happens. And if the settlement happens, where does that money come from? I don't have the answer. I doubt a lot of these schools do. So in a way, I think everyone is rooting for this to pass, because that's clearly the reality we're moving toward. But also, there seems to be a belief that the more crazy things get and the more chaotic they get, the better the chance seems to be that we can get some sort of law from Congress to do all these things the NCAA or these schools want to happen. So we're at a place where truly only Congress can really bring order to this system, and a judge that is not employed by any college program is the most powerful person in college athletics.
And she rules, I was wanting to check this, her next ruling, or the final ruling, is due April 7th, 2025. She made the last one on April 7th, 2024, and then they reworked some things back in the fall and brought it to her because she initially didn't accept what was being proposed. They reworked some things and they said, okay, we'll move this forward. But I bring up that date as being significant because April 7th is about a week before the spring portal window opens. April 16th through the 25th is the 10-day portal window for the spring calendar. And I'll be curious and, again, fascinated to see the ramifications of that ruling and then the portal opening 9 days later. But to the point on the complaints being filed and things like that, it's my understanding now that this revenue share is going to have to be Title IX compliant. I don't begin to understand how that happens or how that's implemented. Does it mean tracking precise penny for penny revenue generation and then distributing based on that? Or does it mean regardless of anything, like Title IX distribution means all the female athletes must receive the same amount of monetary distribution as all the male athletes on campus, because of that 20.5 million figure that's supposed to be the opener in year one, and then it's supposed to jump up to around 21.5 or 22 million in year two of the House settlement if it moves forward as proposed. Most people I talked to were expecting football, maybe at the Power 4 levels or there, generally that level, to receive 14 to 16 million of that 20 to 20.5 million dollars. And then that would be distributed among football, and the rest would be distributed among the other sports on campus that were going to be getting a revenue share. The other thing is, guys, as Zach has alluded to, we're going into the portal, and and schools have been planning to have this revenue distribution agreement starting in the fall, and there's schools already drafting revenue sharing arrangements that they're having prospects sign that are basically taking the place of NLIs. So it is fascinating. I don't think we're going to get really any answers until that April 7 date, and then I still don't think that's going to be all the answers we need.
So a couple of years back, I had the opportunity to have dinner with Chip Kelly, and through sitting there with Chip, the guy, he loves coaching football. He loves scheme. He loves everything about that game. He does not like negotiating with high school athletes, or tampering is the wrong term, but seeking to woo, even through the transfer. It's just not what he loves. So Chip's like the happiest guy in the world today, right? He gets to pull the ripcord out of college football, goes to the NFL to be a coordinator making $6 million. Let's all round of applause for Chip, because that's.
Did anyone have a better 2024 season in all of football than Chip Kelly?
The greatest country in the world. Incredible. He steps down from UCLA to go win a natty and then bounce, and he nailed it all. I mean,
could have been better. Could have beat Michigan, and then.
Oh, God.
But does he really care? No, he really doesn't. I promise you. I promise you, he's not losing 1 ounce of sleep over that.
His I doubt his contract had a bonus clause for beating Michigan, but I guarantee it had a bonus clause for winning the Natty. So
sure.
even more so reason that Chip Kelly is absolutely dunking on all of us and showing what winning truly is.
He's not sleeping right now anyway. He's living in Vegas. He's not sleeping.
Those Ohio State contracts actually have really substantial bonuses for winning the national championship and things like that, which makes the whole Jim Knowles, going to Penn State. That's James Franklin. All right, Tom Allen moves on to Clemson, and James like, hey, my window is I gotta get this done. He pays everything necessary to get Jim Knowles. Collectively, I think we all have always thought Penn State's pretty good on defense and okay. The quarterback to receiver thing is the issue, and James just doesn't address that. Does Penn? What is the ceiling for Penn State?
Go ahead, Zach. I have some strong thoughts here.
I think the ceiling for Penn State is what we saw this past season. I mean, when are they ever going to have a better playoff draw? I think they have to go. They get Oregon at home this coming season, and I think they go to Ohio State. Correct me if I'm wrong. So their schedule is going to be more difficult. But you didn't have to beat Ohio State. You didn't have to win the Big Ten, and you basically got a glide path to the semifinals. You led that game against a wobbly Notre Dame team by 10 points, and you still couldn't get it done, largely, as you said, Scott, because of quarterback play. It's heading into 2025. I'm trying to think of a more like there's not even a program close to the if not now win scenario than Penn State is, and I'm going to bet against them to do it until they actually prove me wrong.
It's like the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I'm going to bet with the Chiefs until I'm proven wrong. Yeah. Go ahead, JB.
I was just going to say, I think with what Penn State brings back and adding Jim Knowles, like I expect Penn State to have a great chance to be a top 4 seed in next year's CFP, and anything can happen from that point on. But the fact that you bring back Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, and again, those guys don't come back, especially Nick Singleton. If the system wasn't there for players to get paid at the collegiate level, there's not a chance in the world that Nick Singleton is a Nittany Lion next year. But those two guys are back, and Drew Aller is back. He's got to fix his big game bugaboos, no question. But finally, James Franklin has some continuity on the offensive side of the ball and brings in who I said all year I felt, along with Al Golden, were the 2 best defensive coordinators in all of college football. Now Al Golden's in the NFL. So to me, Jim Knowles stands alone as the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. I think this is Penn State's everything to the middle of the table moment. And I think with what everybody else around college football loses and what Penn State brings back, and the fact that Penn State's going to sit there and gnash its teeth for 10, 11 months for letting Notre Dame come back and win a game, and for James Franklin losing another game that he had a double-digit lead in and losing another game against a top 5 AP opponent. I think all those things make Penn State a very dangerous 2025 team.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could make an argument right now they're the best team in the Big Ten coming back. I mean, I know Oregon has some key pieces coming back. They lose a lot. You could argue no one in the country loses more than Ohio State in terms of talent. Having to replace both coordinators and offensive line coach, and seeing how Ryan Day is going to fill those really key spots on his staff is going to be huge. And meanwhile, you got James Franklin and Penn State that returned their offensive coordinator, arguably upgraded defensive coordinator. And now if they can solve the quarterback and receiver issue, I mean, to have a receiver without a reception in a college football playoff game is absolutely mind-boggling. Now you've got the best tight end in college football and a super dynamic player, but they've got to fix that issue, I think, in order to get over the hump. But all the plate pieces are in place at Penn State. In a lot of ways reminds me of Ohio State kind of reloading, upgrading, investing in coordinators, and now the path is there's no excuse for James Franklin. There hasn't been, but there's really no excuse at this point.
Yeah,
well,
and
go ahead,
quickly, I was just going to say, quickly noting, they have begun to try and address that in the transfer portal. They got the Ross kid from Troy, who was fabulous this past season for Jared Parker. Low-key, pretty under the radar. Parker and Troy had a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver in year one. Now the 1,000-yard receiver is gone. He's headed off to Penn State. They also grabbed a wide receiver from USC, and they made a handful of other portal acquisitions, and they bring some guys back, and they got rid of some guys at the wide receiver position. So I think that, again, they're solidly positioned. They get Oregon at home next year. They have to go to Ohio State and to Michigan State. They don't play Michigan. They get Nebraska at home next year. So there's a lot to like about what Penn State brings back and how the Nittany Lions schedule shapes up as we forecast 9 months down the road.
Well, I was just going to add, the Knowles is interesting because his system is not the easiest to pick up. And you look at Ohio State, his tenure there, they did not immediately get a whole lot better. They were 43rd in yards per play in 2021. They're 37th in Knowles' first year, and then it took until 2023 for them to really become an elite unit. And you go back to those big games against good teams early in the Knowles era, there were a lot of busts, a lot of big plays allowed. And those Ohio State teams had a higher ceiling offensively than this Penn State team did. Now, Penn State's better defensively, but the idea that they're going to instantly level up going from Tom Allen to Jim Knowles, I'm not sure that's even true.
Super Bowl week. Let's close this out real fast. Super Bowl thoughts. I'm taking the Chiefs because until they lose, I'm taking the Chiefs. Any other quick thoughts out there?
I don't know if you can see, I got some Chiefs gear on my shelf. That's my NFL team. Nothing like the Braves are my Major League Baseball team. I'm a Braves fanatic. I'm a Chiefs fan. But I'm picking the Eagles this week. I think they're due. I think Saquon Barkley is the difference. And I just think that his singular presence in this game changes the dynamic for why I'm picking the Eagles instead of my Chefs.
As an NFL agnostic, I'd be happy to see either team win. I love watching the Eagles on offense. But in America, we celebrate greatness. And America is the ultimate winner's town. And the Chiefs are trying to do something that's never been done before. And Patrick Mahomes in late games is as close to unstoppable as you'll get. So I'm rooting for the Chiefs.
I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl this year, I think. No, I think the Chiefs have some warts that they've had all season long and continue to win games, but I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL from top to bottom. So I'm gonna tip my cap to the Eagles, and it's no team has ever won back to back, and I don't see that happening now.
I do love the subplot in this game of Andy Reid v. Nick Sirianni, because Andy Reid might be, if there was a poll, I think he would win as most beloved NFL coach. And I think the opposite end of that spectrum of a poll, Nick Sirianni would at least be among the most divisive NFL coaches. But I like Nick Sirianni. I like his fire. I like his intensity. I like that he'll talk that talk and talk that mess to the fans on the sidelines. So
Perfect fit for Philly, man.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he's winning, he's a perfect fit for Philly. They love that. Early in the year when they lost a couple of games, they were like, this guy's a bum. So we'll see. But I love that subplot, and I hope that I'm wrong.
So I think Andy Reid and his coaching staff just do a superior job compared to a lot of their peers in preparation. I think I saw that Vic Fangio has never, Vic Fangio's defense has never beaten Patrick Mahomes. That's a problem. I think Vic is unbelievable. He's really good. Spags late game, his adjustments are just unreal. Andy's always got a couple of play calls that just like, wow, that was special. And then Mahomes finishes. I'm still on the Chiefs. Gentlemen, you have not swayed me. Folks, we are the Football Scoop staff. We love doing these. We're going to start picking these up a lot more frequently. Tell your friends. We certainly appreciate it. You can find us on footballscoop.com and anywhere on this vast web. We love you guys. We're out.